All right, then. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the 8th episode of the Vanilla Experience podcast. Today, with me, I have the old gen PvPer, content creator, and vanilla tier list moderator, Satari. How you doing, fine sir?
Yo, what's good, man? I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Before you red pill me and the entire community, right? I want to start off with some easy questions. So, when did you start playing Minecraft, and how did you get into PvP?
I've been playing Minecraft for almost 15 years now. I started when I was a very young kid. I was like either 10 or 11. I've been in the survival community itself for almost just as long, really, like about 13 years. So I've seen the survival community from like its very infant stage, like having small groups and whatnot, just like coming in and out of the community. Like even before Crystal became a thing, like yeah, I got to see a lot of the other metas develop and all that. And as for Crystal PvP, I've been there since the start, like, day one. I got to see people actively like come up with like all these strategies and whatnot, like hit crystaling. That was initially started off as like an idea, like oh, what if we could do this, like before that, they've just been baiting people onto ledges.
And so tell me, how was it like when you first started Minecraft itself? I want to hear a little bit about the backstory of Exatari.
I started playing Minecraft on there was like this website called MinecraftForFree.com, and beside that, like I also used to excuse me for a second.
Shit, man, that makes you fucking old.
Yeah, yeah. So like there's that, and I used to share an account with an IRL friend of mine. The account was like Azula98. At some point, it got like hacked, so I lost access to that account like years ago. But yeah,
And then,
yeah, I've been in this
uh-huh,
community for a minute.
yeah, yeah. And then tell me, how did you get in? Like, I guess this would kind of go in. This would kind of tie into the last question, right? But how did you get into the Vanilla Crystal PvP community, if you will?
The way I got into it is just like I've been in the survival community for years, right? And what people also don't really understand, like the vanilla survival community, is where Vanilla Crystal came from. Like, that's where it stemmed from. Not
Mm-hmm.
just from you know people trying to copy whatever 2B2T was doing and trying to transfer it onto like a no hack survival environment, but also like people would often try to like revolutionize things and do things in their own way.
Yeah, no, I get
But
you.
yeah, so like yeah, pretty much that.
Mm-hmm. And then this is from direct. This is directly from your own Discord server, right? But you said you quit survival to grind the tier list, whatever that is. What's the reason for that?
Oh, the only server I really played was like classic survival. Like I feel like you yourself know for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd always see me or one of my old accounts like AFKing 24/7. It's just like unfortunately a lot of disappointment took place. Like I was very disappointed in how like things were being handled in classic, like especially towards the end. Um,
Yeah.
when
Mm-hmm.
Funky and I were basically just like completely invalidated and whatnot, and then eventually just like turned into just a cesspool of like Nazis and shit, just like posting
Uh,
like their cringe incel shit and whatnot. So if I wasn't going to play on Classic, I wasn't just going to go move over to B plus or whatever.
mm-hmm.
Figured, you know what, might as well, call it quits there and try focusing on something else.
Fair enough. Since you've mentioned it, right? You've been in the community for a very long time, then, right? How, in your opinion, right? How has the community, like the PvP community in general, shifted over the years as from your perspective?
I mean, oh, that's a really good question. I mean, like, so back in the gap, doxing was like a very common thing that people wouldn't really like bat an eye twice. Like, it was pretty toxic back then, like really, 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 really toxic to the point where, you'd have doxers like as admins in like, tier list related communities, right? Like, back when things were still very new, right? Like CRA, for example, like these people were like they weren't good people at all. Like I'm sure you've seen the Marlowe video, kind of like exposing everything that took place behind the scenes. But today, in comparison, it's definitely a lot safer. Of course, there's still a very long way to go in terms of like player safety and all that, which I could get more into if you're interested in knowing. But like they like our administration with like the tier list system by creating like a network between the server owners have in order to make like a collaborative effort in order to make the community a lot safer has definitely made you know a lot of like good progress to like a better future when it comes to this community for sustainability. I definitely believe.
Yeah, I mean that's great you mentioned that, right? Because from what I understand, right, you're a mod for what was the vanilla tier list, right? And you handled what is it called, like blacklist situations, right? Um,
Yeah.
why do you think so many people have an issue with how you operate?
Well, I think I'm very brash when it comes down to it. Even though my role itself was as a network moderator, what a lot of people don't really understand is like when it comes to the tier list blacklist, the person who like came up with it and pushed for it, that was me. Like I went and pushed for a blacklist type sort of thing since give or take like 2018. I've been trying to push to make it like a thing. And Marlowe was like really the only person that actually believed that this was a viable thing that we could do. Like back, for example, like back when Rag on the tier list, we would often get into arguments over whether or not it'd be something that could work. Like he'd always argue that you could go ahead and get rid of these guys, but at the end of the day, they can create an alt and then just rejoin the Discord, and then what's the point? But truth be told, like that is the point, right? Like you want to get rid of their name because at the end of the day, these people are very ego based. All right, like they matter. Like what matters to them is that their name is out there, and they can't have that if you get rid of their name. Like if you're censoring them specifically because of the fact that they are committing like these heinous acts.
Mm.
And bringing back to like my role within the community, like as a network moderator, like I never really wanted more power than what I already previously had because that's like a bit too much of like a responsibility that I just don't want to burden myself with. But like I I would also just try and like do my best, really. I try to like rem- do my best in the sense that like what's the right word for it?
I think what you're trying to say is the morally correct thing to do, right?
Yeah, especially that, of course. Like I try and maintain, my sense of morality despite all odds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of the people that I dealt with, specifically, my role as a network moderator was to deal with the more gruesome cases that required an adult. And I was basically the community's de facto trusted adult because not many people would want to sit there and deal with pedophiles all day, you know what I mean? So I'd also have to deal with like a lot of like more of the recognized cases in this community. Like a lot of content creators, a lot of like well-known players getting exposed. Like I had to deal with that directly. And because of the way they're viewed, right, and what they say in response to the way I dealt with their situation, of course, the community would sometimes turn and look at me, in a negative light. But I completely understand that, like it's not something that really bothers me all too much. But what does bother me is like, how a lot of their words could also have it like they could basically get away with it essentially.
Mm. No, that's good you bring that up, right? Because there's this notion, right, of like the tier list is biased, right? The mods are biased, and when it comes to how they rule and how they deal with each case, right? Um, a big criticism is that there's bias, right? How true would you say that this statement is?
I don't think that's true at all. What people often think is like that network moderators are like picked specifically on based off of ideology. I completely disagree with that, and I say that from experience. There's a lot of like network moderators that actually don't like me. Um, I'm not going to name them by name, but like if they're watching, they know who they are. But we do agree on the sense that like there are certain people that don't deserve to be in the community. Because like of course we know like when it comes to like the certain details, we are entitled to know exactly what's going on because they share a lot of like private information that isn't publicly accessible to the community that allows us to further investigate each and every single case in order to come to like a proper conclusion as to what we're going to do. You know?
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm gonna mention the elephant in the room here because I think this is like really important to the context of this conversation, right? But we're in this weird
Yeah, of
position right
course.
now with like the tier list, right? And for those of you who are watching far into the future, right, at the moment or as of recently, the tier list has essentially split into two, right, between its owners, right? And
Right.
that does mean that the status quo will and can be challenged, right? So, what do you hope to see out of the splitting of MC tiers in the tier list?
To be quite honest with you, I wasn't completely aware of the split that was going to take place prior to me. I resigned from my position as a network moderator, like give or take 3 months ago at this point. But to be honest with you, what I can imagine is going to happen is like Marlo's definitely going to be creating a lot better infrastructure for player safety. She's going to build up more upon like what we had already previously built. That's something I'm absolutely looking forward to. I feel as though there's definitely going to be a lot more ability to like network between different other networks, like Stoneworks or Hypixel, and all that. Because now she, with her separating empty tiers from the vanilla tiers, like this, that gives her more autonomy in order to just like make her own decision rather than having to go to the other owners and then having to have this discussion with them.
Mm. And I'm not sure if you read the entire article, right? But from what it seems from Marlowe's side of things, right? It seems like the other owners of the tier list probably were not doing the best job that they could regarding managing the tier list. There's like
Right.
evidence provided and everything. I'm sure there's always like like another side of the story. There always is, but I guess where I'm going with this is that what do you think is like the biggest issue when it comes to oh, sorry, no. What I mean to say is the issue, right, at hand with that many players see, right, is that they see when, because now Marlo owns MC tiers, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So I want to
I
bring up
believe
the
so.
issue of totalitarianism, right? Which is basically the idea that, if one person has like all the ownership, all the power, and can make all the executive decisions, right? It's very easy to abuse that power, right? Not that I'm saying Marlo
Uh-huh.
would, but I'm just saying when one person has all the power, it's uncontested, right? You have that issue, right? With this new MC Tiers project, right? Do you think that'll be like an issue? It like
Um, No, no. I think that it's the Minecraft community at the end of the day. I don't think she's seeking like power that she doesn't already have, if you know what I mean. Um, she already has massive influence within the PvP community as it is. I don't see how she can expand it further than what she already has, regardless of like getting sole ownership of the tier list community or any like anything else, right? Like it's at the end of the day just a Minecraft community. I don't think that anything that she could do will like result in somebody having a bad day. You know?
You have to understand, Satari, though, that like some of these kids, this is their life, you know.
Oh
On the
yeah,
low.
no, I completely understand. They live and
so
breathe
so
Minecraft
mhm,
PvP, skipping
yeah.
school just so they can climb the tier list a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah.
I get it, but it's just like it's not really that big a deal.
Mm. I think
Like
some of
tier
them
list
would beg to differ,
politics is.
but no, I just wanted to bring
Mm,
that up because I'm sure that's been a concern among players. Because no, it's really, if you really think about it, right? It's like a big balancing kind of thing, right? It's like, all right, we need like people in, we need rational, you know, preferably mature adults, like to make sure nothing like fucking wild goes on, right? But at the same time, when you have that, right, it's like, all right, now it's like, okay, now you can't do this, you can't do that, and you know, it's like it's a, what is it, a double edged sword, right? That's the word for it. So just wanted to bring that up. But moving on, right? I
mm.
wanted to ask you, what do you think is the biggest issue these days when it comes to the community and the tier list?
Um, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to be honest with you, I don't know.
There
I
are no
can always
issues.
just point fingers
Uh
to
huh.
like these certain groups and whatnot, but I feel like it always boils down to toxicity. A close friend of mine and I were like having a really interesting conversation about like it was called like a triangle of like toxicity or something like that, but it was like based off of something a philosopher Alan Watts was talking about, where you have like a guy who's being a dickhead, and then the victim, and then there was like the savior, and I found myself also fitting a lot within that frame of view, right? Where I would often try and play up as the savior, start pointing fingers and whatnot, and that would also lead to me also being toxic as well. Like I'm not, going to say that I'm an angel or anything, but it's like you often see that within this community. You often
Mm.
see these groups going after one another, whether it be Onyx, going after Marlowe for whatever reason, or like Marlowe, posting a video pointing all this out. Now all of a sudden, the community is weaponized against these people. Is like it's a very common back and forth. You know, I feel as though at the end of the day, what the biggest issue might be is like our community members need to, realize that, at the end of the day, this is, Minecraft. All right. Like this is Minecraft beef that we're fucking arguing over. All right. Like this isn't going to put food on your table. All right. Not going to put money in your wallet. Like take a step back, breathe, breathe in fresh air, chill out. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, hashtag kindness in the tier list, guys. Come on. That's pretty much it. Like
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that's
fair
what I
enough.
think our biggest
Hmm.
issue is.
Hmm. Going back on a point you had, right, with you know, with yourself, right? I want to know, right? Is ex Atari like your real personality, or is it, just a little bit of bait, a little bit of LARP to, fuck with the kids on the block game?
Oh no, that's my real personality, man. Like I'd be barking at people on the internet, but I'm also barking at people like in real life, like
Mm.
both as a dog and as like in words too. But I'm just a little autistic. Like what can I say?
I mean, are we all to some degree?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a spectrum after all.
Yeah. That being said, right? What's the funniest
Mhm.
conversation that you've ever had with someone in the community? Whether, it'd be just absurd or just be, just funny in general.
Man, it's gotta be Cersei. Yeah, I fucking love that kid. Like, actually, like, I feel like everybody in this community knows who Cersei is, but this kid is fucking funny. Like, intentionally or not, like, he is genuinely one of the funniest people I've ever met in this fucking community. Like, you've probably seen, like, some of Golfeh's videos, right? Where he'd be like, oh, this is the most insane Minecraft player. And Cersei just be, like, blurting out, like, the most random ass shit. Like he'd be defending like I don't know Drake or fucking repeating some shit Aiden Roth would say, and then he just like be really stupid about it. He's a very funny kid, and I hope he's doing good. I haven't spoken to him in a minute, but like I hope he's doing good. I hope he's eating good. Great kid. But yeah, definitely
That's
like the
good, man. That's good
funniest,
to hear. No, I've had
funniest
a
guy I've met.
yeah, I've had a run in with Cersei probably a year ago back on Classic, but nah, he's an entertaining fellow. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
Anyways, moving on, right? I want to talk about the Vanilla Event Network, otherwise known as VEN, right? You
Oh
were an
boy,
owner of VEN, right? Like a co-owner?
yeah, I was.
Uh-huh. Tell me
I was a
about
co-owner.
tell me about what it was like starting VEN and running VEN.
Well, for starters, I was not the founder of Ben. It was actually Vert. It was Virtuale. Um, and when I came on board as an owner, I initially was kind of reluctant to even become staff. I started off as like a co-host. It was like a little vote, like a little popularity vote going on, where it was like me or Ukdog for a host, and I beat and I beat him by like fucking 3 votes. He was pissed. It was funny as fuck, but moving on, like a few months after that, I became a moderator and then an admin, eventually becoming an owner when, we were having like a lot of financial issues with Vent's upkeep. Because despite having many donors, our biggest issue was like at the end of the day was like our pricing for our ranks and whatnot and like what we can offer because at the time we couldn't really figure out exactly what it is that we could offer for a practice server. But at the same time, we also had all these costs for, like plugins, which we had to like pay. We also had to use, we were very limited, right? Like Ven itself, despite being a pretty decent quality practice server, we were using like vanilla commands or like these free plugins you'd find on GitHub or wherever. But like that's how I came on board because I wanted to support Ven financially because I believed in the vision that we had for Ven. But yeah, so like I wanted to support Ven financially, right? That was like the main reason I came on board. But eventually, I also had like all these visions that I could see for Ven in terms of like how I can promote Ven, how I can elevate Ven to like a higher, playing field. And I was actively marketing Ven like everywhere, like you'd see on the tier list at the time, you'd see, a fuck ton of Ven ads being bought like every other day, like people would
Uh-huh.
hate me primarily because of the fact that like, okay, this guy is buying way too many fucking at everyone things. All right, like I feel like I'm one of the main people responsible for like these fucking advertisements rarely getting bought today because everybody has their shit muted.
Hmm.
But like I would always be trying to like promote Van. We eventually hit like our highest peak in player count because of all this work that I was putting in. Like Vern and I had like a really good vision for Ven, but unfortunately, like when it came down to it, the community didn't really. Uh, it's like the community didn't really have much of an appreciation for a lot of the work that we put in, and it eventually lead to like a lot of harassment that we'd receive. Like on my end, it would be because like I was muting people for saying slurs, which I mean that's like a normal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
That I
very
would say
normal
that's
thing
pretty
we see
reasonable.
today.
Yeah.
But back then, like we touched upon earlier, the community used to be very, very toxic. Like saying slurs, that was like a normal one to them. They felt as though that was like a human right. Like they would die on that hill. But they didn't like the fact that we were trying to make the community better for other people, for newer players, for better first impression.
Mm.
And it eventually led to the VTS drama, which I'm sure you've heard of. But like, long story short, a lot of our admins ended up getting doxxed, swatted. Me and Vert included.
Could you run me through that real quick? I'm familiar with that.
So VTS 1.0 was a shit show, to say the least. Of course, it was run by great people, wonderful people, but unfortunately, there was a group, which I'm not gonna like name them specifically because I don't want to give them attention, but they know who they are. They started bringing other very harmful individuals into the community, which then led to them weaponizing them against us. And essentially, we all, like everybody on the VTS staff team, got like doxxed, like full doxxed. Like I got doxxed, I got swatted even. My, family members got harassed. Golfeh's family members got harassed. He got swatted, full doxxed. Same thing with Vert. And the thing with what happened there, that was kind of like what broke. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like as the saying
Mm-hmm.
goes, that's what that was for Vert. He just couldn't take it anymore. Like, and it was, justifiable, completely justifiable. For that reason, like, he ended up quitting. He ended up leaving Ben as an owner. And unfortunately for me, like, he was the primary guy, like, keeping everything put together, whilst I was the guy marketing, right? Like, that was our roles. And eventually, problems with the server itself started mounting up, and I wanted like a better vision, and eventually I got too ambitious. I ended up shutting the server down because of the fact that, hey, I think I could do something better. Ended up never doing that, but you know, that's where we are today. Server got shut down. I had Vent Survival. That didn't pan out as I wanted it to pan out, and yeah, ended up shutting that down too.
Yeah, and before we move along, right, I just want to be able to say to you, right, in person that me and my friends, when we started Crystal PvP, right, do you know which server we learned how to, hit Crystal and everything? We
Oh, I
learned,
remember,
yeah, we learned how to hit Crystal on Ven. Me, my friend
Yeah.
Skimmer, and my friend Arsenet, and also Sick Poppy, right? And I'm sure like more that I probably forgot, right? We owe you and Vert like a personal gratitude because without Ven, right, me and so many others could not have like Ven was our introduction to the community, right? And even though it's been long gone, right? I hope you know that in many of our
Mhm.
hearts, Ven was the place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I absolutely do remember you guys. I remember Skimmer also having the most deaths on the server.
He had like a kill death ratio of like something like I don't know like 0 point like I don't know I think it was
Yeah, it
like
was
0
pretty
point
impressive.
yeah it was funny like I just don't know how
It
he
was
managed to do
pretty impressive. She had like 20,000 something deaths. Like, I did not know that was like
yeah
achievable. That was like within like give or take a month
yeah
too.
something
Like,
like that yeah
how second place wasn't even like at 1,000 yet, and like this guy is somehow like up there.
yeah um and then I think you already mentioned it right but there's not going to be any like future plans to run a server like Ven ever again right
Well, I wouldn't say never.
mm.
I have a few ideas that I've been toying around with. Eventually, when I do get the capital to actually make those ideas a reality, I'll definitely like be announcing something.
mm. Gotta get that bag first. Gotta make that bread, Satari.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Adulthood is fucking brutal, man.
Mm.
But yeah, no.
And then for those people who do have the means to, right? What are some things people should know before starting or running a server for it to do, I guess, relatively well would be the term.
I mean, you have to really have, a model, like basically like a business model, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want a Minecraft server to succeed, you got to convince yourself to play on it first.
Mm.
Why would you play on this? Is it fun for you at the end of the day? If it's not, then it's not going to work. Like if you can't convince yourself to play on your own server, then you should just pack your bags, right? Like don't waste your money. Don't waste your effort. Just figure that out first. And when you do figure that out, then commit to it. Like there's going to be some hard times, of course. Just know that like eventually those hard times will pass, and you'll get exactly what you're looking for. The community,
Wise
that's
words, man.
pretty much it.
Wise words. So, on the topic of servers, right? I want to move on to another server that you've been involved in, right? If I remember correctly, you were a mod on Classic Survival. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about Classic Survival. How was that? How'd you become a mod? And then how was doing mod work on there?
Well, I didn't want to become a moderator on there, but eventually, Funky Monkey like convinced me to. But like, I went and told him that like, okay, if I'm gonna be a moderator, I don't want perms. Like I don't want to be able to like EP to people. I don't want any of that because I still want to be able to like raid people and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, I was
Yeah.
the only moderator there without access to tickets or like any permission to like teleport or like go and vanish where I can like teleport to other people and spectator and whatnot. I didn't have any of those perms at all, right? The only moderator that did not have those perms, and that's how I became a moderator on there. But like, if you want to know what happened
Yeah,
with
tell me about
Classic
that. I was
and
about to
how,
ask. Yeah,
yeah,
going back to what we talked about earlier, right? What exactly happened to Classic? Because not many of us got like a full explanation. I don't know how much you can tell me, but as much as you could would be awesome.
yeah, I mean, so Classic went down because like Funky, he had a really good vision of what Classic could be. He wanted to make the user interface like 10 times better. He wanted to completely change up the infrastructure which the server was built on, right? And he just you saw like all these like cool features he was adding. He had like way more in mind, right? That he wanted to add, but like he couldn't really add features like the auto clicker or like I mean, what else did he add? Those
I think he did
cool
teams,
arenas that he
right?
had going on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
those
the
two.
teams as well.
Yeah, yeah.
He couldn't add more stuff like that because of the fact that the classic infrastructure just couldn't handle it, and he wanted
Mm-hmm.
to change that up. And unfortunately, like due to, I mean, I want to say like I'm going to give the admin team the benefit of the doubt here and say that it was a matter of availability, but I've seen a lot of you know evidence, telling me otherwise that like they just didn't want to help him, and at the end of the day, that caused all the workload to be put onto Funky alone, since Funky was the only other admin working on it, and eventually that led Funky to be burnt out because not only was he doing all the work by himself, but he was also getting the brunt of the community's backlash. Everybody was, turning to Funky, telling him, demanding, hey, give me, turn Classic on, turn Classic back on, or just like, they're just harassing him, calling him stupid, calling him a idiot, whatnot, like, calling him slurs, calling him a, liberal, like, you've seen the Classic Discord. You've seen the things that they say about him. It's just like, he didn't deserve any of that. He was a very well intentioned guy. He was the best admin that I've seen in a community like ever. Like he would single handedly maintain Classic active like consistently by throwing constantly throwing events. All this like not to glaze him. In fact, I'm glazing the fuck out this man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I fucking love Funky Monkey. Like if he sees this, I love you, bro. Like, but yeah, like you know, eventually that led him to resign. And when he did resign, like the other admins, they weren't really as passionate as about classic survival as he was. Eventually that just led to Joe just like calling it quits. Just didn't see the point in hosting the server anymore. And I mean, Stewie also wasn't all that interested in maintaining classic survival. They thought about selling, but they rather just bury the hatchet, just call it quits.
Mm. And then I'm not sure how much you know about this, right? But exactly why did Classic, because one of the reasons was because of inactivity, right? But the map just like got wiped one day. Well, like was that a mistake, an accident? Do you know anything about that or no?
Yeah, that was it was a mistake.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that wasn't something intentional. I mean, like people were talking about hey, maybe we should reset the map, but like they didn't reset it because of the fact that they wanted to reset it. No, it was purely accidental. Like
Gotcha.
they did try to recover every time
Mm.
because like there was a lot of work put in there, and they knew that like if they reset, like a lot of the loyal player base would just disappear into thin air and go to like some fucking IP logger known as Vintage Survival. But
Yeah. And then like you did mention this briefly, right? But could you tell me some of this like for the players who, don't really know much about running like a server, including myself, right? What are like the technical aspects that like goes into maintaining a server, right? Is it like coding or what?
yeah, I'm gonna be so for real, man. I'm not very good at the technical aspects like myself. Like when it comes to running servers, my whole job was to just promote it. I'm the promoter.
Okay, okay, okay.
But I mean, from what I know, from trying to learn how to like manage a server on the technical side, it's just like you really need to be well connected with developers. Like if you want like a really good server, you need to like know like with some really good developers, and you need to have the capital in order to afford those plugins. Because like free shit on the internet is only going to take you so far away. Like you need to like have good hosting. You need to have these good devs on your side. You got to have like a really good staff team. You need to also be very active within the community. Like there's just so much that goes into it, and it
Gotcha,
can be very
gotcha.
exhausting.
Yeah. Um, and then in addition to servers, right, you've also like done events, kind of like how Funky has, right? Could you tell me about how it
Yeah.
is like running like server PvP events? How that is?
So my events are very infamously known for being extremely scuffed, but like I'm known for throwing like some really really big events whenever it comes down to it. Like my largest event, it was on Club a few years back. It crashed the server because of how many people like showing up. We had like give or take 220 people log on Club on
Jesus.
Ending Club. The entire server broke. Like they broke the plugin.
Holy
I had to
cow.
call it off, unfortunately, and I was pretty pissed about it too because like I spent a pretty penny just advertising the event alone. So I was just like, "Fuck, man!" Like it was terrible. But I mean, aside from that, like when I'd host events on Ven or PvP Legacy, it'd always be like super scuffed. Like I'd be handling everything either by myself or like with Funky Monkey's assistant or Droony's assistant. Like it'd always be super scuffed. And it also takes like a lot of money just to like advertise them as well. So I'd always be doing it for the community. I don't get anything out of it. Like
Hmm.
you can look at my analytics and whatnot. Like it's not like I'm gaining subscribers or I'm gaining Twitter followers. Like I've always done it for the community. because I do love this community a lot. It's always been a very dear place to me.
Hmm. And then why is that? Like, why do you think that is? What even as toxic
Uh,
as you say this community is, right? It holds a sentimental place in your heart. Why is that?
I grew up here, man. Like I said before, I started playing this game when I was like 10 or 11. I've been in the survival community since like 2012 or 2013. I've seen I grew up alongside people. Like I've
Mm,
grown up alongside Rag. Alongside fucking Golfeh, alongside Vert. Like we all reached into adulthood knowing each other when we were kids. Like not many people can really say that. Like I'm a 25-year-old man. You know,
oh,
like
you're
I was
25.
17 when I met Golfeh. Yeah, I'm 25.
Holy fuck! No way.
20 fucking five, man. Like I've known these people for years. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I've known these people for fucking several years, and like you know, when you look back, at fond memories, there's always that sense of nostalgia. You know, but you also realize that hey, all the bad that took place, you could always pay back for you know pay back the community in a way that like you could make it better, better for the future generations that will be entering the community, going through the same experiences as you. You can always make it so that they don't have to experience all the negatives and experience the good. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, that is a beautiful take. That is a beautiful take, and I don't know. I've never been involved in a community like like I guess whatever you want to call this, right? To be able to say that, but maybe one day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then you did mention you've been playing survival for a while, right? So out of all the survival projects you've worked on, right, which has been your favorite?
Honestly, the last project I worked on, even though I never got to finish it, like I was pretty proud of what I was able to achieve. Like you've probably heard of or probably seen one of my streams where I'm just like working on my base.
Mm-hmm.
I had like my underground goat farm, And a funny thing about that base was like I never really got to make the video on it. I probably won't make the video on it, but like I was already based like right next to like Chicken Doo Doos and Lixto's base.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to blow it up because they were eventually going to build a farm on top of the very biome that I had my base in. But like there was like some pretty cool lore to that base, Like I spent so much time and effort on building that place up. Like I had like a 200x200 perimeter just of gold blocks for like a floor. Like even though I never got to finish it, that place holds a very special place in my heart.
And this was on Classic, correct?
Yeah, this was on Classic. I had probably the largest mega base on Classic.
Mm.
I was probably the richest player on there as well.
That's I don't know. It's a shame because I also had a base. I'm probably gonna send you screenshots after of
Yeah.
what I had. Obviously, it probably wasn't even close to what you had, but no, I mean, Classic was the okay. Classic was the first survival server I took seriously. Like I was like, all right, I'm gonna play survival, like I guess in quotes, right? How it's meant to be played, right? And I really went out,
Right.
built a base, built the farms, did it all by myself, right? And it was like the
Mhm.
first, the first true like survival experience I've had. Um, Obviously I've played other servers before, but like that was the first time I really built all the infrastructure all by myself, did everything by myself basically, and it's a shame it's gone now, but the past is in the past, no?
Yeah. And unfortunately, we do all have to move on.
Yeah. And then I guess my next question is, right? During your time in the community, right? Who was the most interesting person that you've met?
That I've ever met.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. He doesn't like me, but I do think this guy is fucking interesting. It's got to be Ulfa.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I mean, Ulfa was the guy. Like, okay, so people don't give this guy enough credit where it's due. He was the guy who came up with the idea of hit crystalline. just to point that out. Like, his crystalline was like his idea, right? That was like his theory that they could do, but like he thought, okay, this possibly isn't something you could do until Michael Cycle, he proved that theory, right?
Mm.
Um, this guy is like so fascinating in the sense of like his ability to just raid people is something I've never seen before. Like I've never seen anybody like replicate it. He like would run like these alt accounts, especially like back in the day. He would have like several alt accounts. Like he'd buy like a shit ton of alt accounts off of like at the time it was like there were like websites like super alts or like alts in bulk or whatever. And he'd buy like 20 alts for like $10, right? And he would go on servers with them and then pretend to be new players, but he'd be playing mind games with people in order to just like do this super elaborate teleport trick that would eventually lead him into their base. And my first like ever encounter with him was on this like old survival server called Vanilla, and he did that to one of my friends, and my jaw dropped like the way he did it. Like he had like what he did was like he went and um he went and like drank like an invis pot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he would essentially like play up that like, oh, there's like this really weird bug that you can glitch out and and just like be invisible to people. And my friend, she was like a bit of a fucking noob when it comes to Minecraft. She still is a noob, but like she's a casual, right? She doesn't know better. All right. She went and believed him at face value, and he laid a bed out for her, and he was like, "Hey, here's what you do, okay?
I know
So
where
in
this one's
order
going.
to, yeah, in order for you to like do this, right, you have to sleep in this bed, all right, and then I have to kill you." Well, no, he didn't mention that he had to kill her, but like that he had to like that she had to like accept his teleport, right,
Mm-hmm.
within a certain time frame, and she was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that, right?" And he placed the bed down. She slept in the bed. He broke the bed. Killed her within sub 2 seconds, right? And when she respawned within my base, which was her set home. And of course, you already know where this goes. He immediately like was teleported directly into my base, and how the story goes. But like that was like my first impression of the guy, and seeing that like seeing him do it over and over again, like when I was finally teamed with him in like Defcon and whatnot, I've never seen somebody just like be able to do something like that, like so flawlessly, so consistently. Like it was always something that I found extremely remarkable, regardless of like the difference in political views we may have or all that. Like I always admired him for that. And I feel like he knows that, but like he doesn't really fuck with me.
No, I mean real recognizes real.
Yeah, exactly, man. Real recognizes real. I've been seeing this shit for a minute. You get it, dog. You get it.
Yeah. You mentioned this for a brief moment, right? But tell me a little bit more about Veneer Facade, aka the cycle.
That guy's a pedophile. End of story.
Okay.
End of story. Like that's where the story ends, man.
No, no, nothing else to say
Yeah, no, nothing else to say.
because I've heard I've heard from secondhand accounts, but if you want to leave it at that, we'll leave it at that.
So I will say this. Um, there's the evidence was lost a very long time ago. There weren't really proper measures in place to like store all this evidence. This was all like before the blacklist was even a thing, right? This was
Hmm.
like during the time where I was still pushing for this to be something to be put in place. But like this controversy like took place whilst I was on hiatus from the community. This was during a time where Michael Cycle was considered to be a part of Defcon, but as things broke took place, he ended up getting kicked out. There was a huge argument, a lot of resentment back and forth, and yeah, I mean, we've I do have evidence of like his friends covering up for him, like his friends like Axel Hayes or at the time like Dioxin, who Dioxin today she goes and looks back on that and sees this guy's a sick fuck, get him away from me. But like he's not he's not a good person, man. He's a terrible human being.
And that's
That's just
that's
how I feel about him.
that's contrary to what most people believe, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, like a lot of the people from back then praise him because of the fact he was a very influential figure. A lot of people don't know this, but he was also a head admin. He was like a Blue Bandit's predecessor. He was head admin on PvP Legacy, and this was during the time when like Dream was on that server. Like he was fucking promoting that server. Like, hey guys, this is a place where you go practice. This is where all the sweats are. This and that. Like he used that position of power to groom a kid. He groomed a minor. Like some kid wanted to be included, within, these circles, and he exploited her for that. Like it just wasn't right.
Yeah, I don't know much about the details nor the specifics, so it's always difficult like when you have situations like that. Because it's like you never
Mm-hmm.
really know what's true unless you have hard evidence, right? And then you said you
Yeah,
wanted to say
I
something on that right at the beginning.
no, it was about the other the other
All
pedophile.
right. Um,
But to add more on that though, I do have like an audio transcript of one of his very close friends, Axel Hayes, touching more on that topic, where he basically confesses that yeah, he met up with this minor, and they did things at a hotel, and like it's irrefutable. Like the audio is shit though. I will say the audio. I don't know what's going on with my OBS that day, but like it was really really bad. Well, we do have like an audio transcript where like you can piece together exactly what he was saying. You know?
Shit, man. And then is that the reason he's just been not in the community then?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly why he left.
Mm.
That's not exactly something he can escape. Like he still has his server, Eternal Anarchy. Like he has that server set up in such a way that like blacklisted players, that's like their haven. That's their safe haven. All right. Like we there was a another admin who was a developer for them, Epic Gamer Gamer. She's awesome, wonderful human being. She went through the effort of gathering evidence to ban a very well-known like doxer. They are known for ratting people's accounts, all that, right? And only for some time to pass, right? For Michael Cycle to have DM'd this person and told them that they could just alt. They were encouraging them to use an alternate account to play on their server. Like they don't care about player safety at all. That's not a priority for them. It's just a matter of maintaining their incel community afloat. Like that's pretty much it. They're not a good person. They're a dangerous person. They're not exactly something or somebody that I would platform. You know,
Mm. Mm.
like I wouldn't for the listeners. I strongly suggest to not even entertain that server. Right, like don't even bother playing on that server because it's not a safe place.
All right then.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
elaborate
mean,
on that.
on this like an adjacent topic, right? I want to move on to player safety and shit, right? Because while we're at it, right? Um,
Mhm.
Tell me about the blacklist, right? Because this is not a public thing, right? The blacklist is the blacklist, right? But nowhere it can be found, right? So it's only like you know, it's only managed by the moderators, right? So
Right.
to that, like, I guess my question is, right? How would people know someone is truly like, a problem versus if someone just wants to tarnish someone else's reputation? Because I've seen it time and time again where people are just like, all right, this person is so and so and so without any evidence, has there been any plans to, make the blacklist like a real thing, like a fucking physical thing like the mctiers website is?
There are plans, yeah. However, the thing is, evidence is never something that we're going to be making public. That is never something that would even be put into consideration due to the fact that evidence could be used to weaponize against the reporter, or the victim. And you've been in this community, you know that people will go out of their way to harass, the victim of like a doxing or swatting or whatever. Like people aren't really all that sympathetic towards people who have been victimized in this community. What I'm trying to say, but as for the direction, from what I understand, with my multiple conversations with Marlo, it's just like the way we plan to. Well, I'm not going to say we to resign, but like the way she plans to like take the blacklist is like she still is currently working on it. Like that's the same response that she gives me like all the time. But like I do think that she has a lot in store, especially with the like I left like a massive document on the changes that I want to see, like whether it comes to like the sexual harassment that takes place in the community towards women, like how people treat women, or like how people just treat like these very egregious tickets as it is. Hopefully she does like take a lot of what I said into consideration, and then we do like see a lot of those changes, be enacted. But yeah, that's still something that's like we've yet to see for sure. But like, yeah,
Yeah, I
give
get
it a
you.
shot.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I'm sure people have concerns about that. Like the blacklist is this like thing that exists, but kind of it's like this like pseudo thing where it's like it exists but not really, but it's enforced, but no one really, no one except
Right.
the moderators, of course, can really access it. So that's good that
Mhm.
you address that, right? And then so now I want to ask you, tell me about your time in Defcon.
Bro, where do I even fucking start? Like, DefCon for me, that was like a whole like year straight. I mean, DefCon, it's not like it lasted too long, but like the period which it was active was like that was like the fucking golden age, man. Like that was it. That was like fucking peak. I look back on it fondly. But at the same time, I also look down on it because like we were a bit of we often did a bit too much. Like this was back when like nobody knew how to like crystal PvP. Like we would log on servers and just like fucking shit on everybody. Like something I noticed like Meme Thief, right? He was posting a TikTok about like, oh how his team PvP was like fucking 27ing people, like jumping the shit out of everybody, but like also back in the day, like we took those 20v7s and we made them run, like that was like the sort of thing that we do, like we ran
Mm,
servers. The only opposition we had was like CRA, like that was like peak. But unfortunately, like things ended up not working out. Like the whole reason DefCon disbanded was a lot of infighting. Like for example, um, there was like a lot of disagreements about, like the leadership, right? Bert was the leader. Uh, I personally don't think he did anything wrong. Like the guy had school, he was, studying, he had his exams, his finals and whatnot. He's in college, right? Like he is actively studying to become like a medical professional for like sports or whatever. Sports medicine is what he used to tell me. Um and like it's a completely reasonable thing to do. Like he was gonna be inactive, why not? And a lot of people on the team, like a lot of the senior members of our team, like fucking Axel or Ulfa, they had an issue with that. They would bring a lot of issue to him, studying, being active and whatnot. Like he said, "Oh, this is terrible leadership. You're not active. Like resign. Like give the reins to somebody else." And it's like nobody was really being affected by it because, for one, it's not like Bert had the sole authority, like the sole say on what goes on, because like when it came down to it, that was a decision made by like like a little council that we had going on. Like we would vote on that. Like if you want somebody in or not, like let's hear your arguments as to why they shouldn't, and then we'll vote on it. You know, but like they had a problem with one of the people that had recently joined. I believe it was Illidork, Mika. They had recently joined after they had insided another team. They insided CRA. We had access to like a bunch of their shit, and one of the members, Axel Hayes, he brought up an issue with that, claiming that this was going to be like the next Deoxin and this and that. And at the time, Deoxin, like for context, Deoxin was a previous member that had betrayed us on Purity and joined CRA. That was their primary farm builder at that point. Um, but yeah, they were claiming that Illidork was going to be the next Deoxin, that they were going to betray us, this and that. And so they hatched like this little this little scheme to like have like this fucking weird ass coup d'état, right? And take power. By doing that, they went and like started secretly recruiting people into their own team called Genesis. And they did it in like such a shady way that like the people that joined their Discord didn't even know that they were a part of the team. Like nobody knew the context of anything that was going on, aside from the senior members that were looking at them like really weird because like why are you doing this? This was both Wolfa and Axel that was doing this shit, and they try to play it off as though there's nothing going on, but like they were very there was like a ton of animosity, right? Like they were creating a ton of animosity towards one another, is creating a ton of infighting, a lot of division, and this also stems from like primarily the beef that Bert and Axel had at the time. Because Axel, like I said before, he was very close with Michael Cycle, and Bert, he was beefing with Michael over that reason, and also another reason which also led to Ben being created. Whatever, like that bit's like irrelevant. Like the important part is like you know Axel fucks with Michael, Bert does not fuck with Michael, right? Like they don't fuck with each other at all. And Axel was trying to defend Michael. Bert didn't, he wasn't on board with that, and like eventually that led to a lot of resentment, led to Axel like instigating a lot of arguments with Bert, and eventually it just like boiled down to like fuck Bert, fuck this and that. Like it just led to Defcon completely splitting. Bert just like, you know what, like here, handed the fucking reins to Axel. Axel ended up deleting the Defcon server. Like that was it. That was really it. That was the end of that. That's how Defcon came, fall apart. But like, yeah. So, um, that infighting essentially led to Defcon splitting apart into you know, Revive and Genesis, right? And that's basically it for the most part. Like, you know, just a short rundown. Axel fucked with Michael, but he
Mm,
also didn't like the fact that Bert was like, exposing Michael, right, for being a fucking pedophile, which, Michael's a fucking pedophile. And yeah, like that was pretty much it. I could be misremembering a fuck ton, but like that
yeah,
was
yeah.
generally just the core
Uh-huh.
issue here.
Yeah. And then your first ever double tap was on Golfeh, right? Tell me, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you met Golfeh because I want to hear this story from your side because he said he told it from his side, but I want to hear from your side.
So I met Golf on Gladius. I mean, I've met him like before in like around like 2014ish, but like I never really stuck around on Gladius like I did on other servers like Simple SMP or like Tavern or Unison. These are all like really old ass fucking survival servers, by the way. But like, I was like, I met him while I was trying to like revive Gladius because I found Gladius to be like one of the few remaining was of its kind, right? With very basic semi-vanilla aspects, like you see with B plus or with classic or vintage. Like it was at the time the only one really out there, you know. And yeah, like that's where I met him. He logged on, him and Vert noticed me on beefing with the mutual opposition that we had, Power Cosmic 5, the fucking goat. Another very interesting guy, by the way. But I'm sure that golf can give you a way better fucking story about this guy. But like, very interesting dude. Um, but yeah, like we bonded over that. We became friends. But I mean, the rest was history. Like that's
Mm.
really it. Like they picked me up from just off of that, and then I was just always a part of their team since then.
So where do you see the future and like where do you want to see the future of, Crystal PvP and, the community, the PvP community in general heading towards? Like, you got any input on that?
I mean, not really, to be completely honest with you. I see a lot of history repeating itself. I've been here since fucking, the 1.7 community. Like, I remember when Koei was like the biggest fucking thing. Koei, Badlines on that. Like that was the place, to be. And as time progresses, I see a lot of things just like happening over and over again that I've seen before. Like it's a sense of deja vu, right? I feel like we're at the point where like, yeah, all these servers are big and popular, but like eventually, Mojang is going to eventually just like push out, a snapshot that's going to be massively controversial. It's going to be the fucking end of the world, Minecraft community, boom, dead, just like that. Like that's what people are going to say, right? But like, it's going to be a very slow transitional period for the PvP community to move on from 1.9 plus combat onto that new form of combat, just like how it was for the 1.8 community.
Mm.
Like that's what I see in the future. It's always going to be like a rinse and repeat. Because Minecraft, I know that like Mojang plans to like have this game be a 50-year plus game, right? Like RuneScape or like fucking World of Warcraft. Like all these other well known games. Pretty much it,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you never know, right? Maybe, maybe Minecraft 2 and Crystal PvP 2 will be where it's at. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is gonna be my last question, but how would you say you've grown as a person throughout your time in the community?
That's a very complex question, I'm not gonna lie. But it's just like like I was talking about earlier about like, that triangle, right? Um, I realized that like this also plays into why I resigned as well. I realized that, despite trying to do so much for this community, I can't really save everybody at the end of the day. And this is also important for other people to know that like you can, apply so much of yourself to towards others that you can't exactly just like turn around and be okay, right? You still exhausted yourself. And you need to understand that it's okay to be a little bit selfish, right? It's okay to look after yourself first and put yourself before others. That's not something that should be frowned upon. Because at the end of the day, like it's definitely something worth thinking about,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I grew up in this community. I grew up in this community like very toxic, especially like I'd say probably in like around up until 2020, I was never like very politically involved, right? Like I was a kid, like I was a kid. I was very immature like back then. Like I used to say slurs a fuck ton, despite people recognizing me to be like oh look this guy is Satari's the fucking liberal, right? That we all know and hate. But like I used to be just like them, right? Saying slurs, like being extremely cringy, but touching grass saves people. That's all I'm trying to say.
Mm.
But yeah, it's important to like you know lean towards the people in your life that that lift you up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, right? Do you have any closing remarks, closing statements? Your advice to the
Um,
kiddos?
I mean, shit. I've given a lot of fucking advice. A
No doubt,
lot
no
of advice,
doubt.
man. Like a whole lot. I mean, I got people to shout out for sure.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Chifoy. Yo, like the shit that she does right now, for women into content creation space. She has like this little program that she runs called Women We Watch. That's women underscore we underscore watch on Twitter. Definitely worth checking out. You got Spooked, who is doing wonderful things in the tierlist community. She's definitely pushing towards better player safety as well. Like she has a lot going on that's like definitely worth paying attention to. And also shout out Marlo. Despite being heavily criticized and looked down upon or even looked up to, she's still a very well-intentioned person, and I feel like people also need to consider that she's still very much a human being. You know, like you mentioned earlier, talks about totalitarianism. It's not something people should really worry about because she still wants people to be eating good at the end of the day. She still wants people to have fun within the community. Like that's at the forefront of her mind. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Listen, man, this has been an awesome interview, dude. Very, very insightful. Learned a lot from you today.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear, man.
You got any plugs you want to throw up before we end this?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter.
All
X
right.
underscore Satari, my handle. And aside from that, nothing else.
All right then. So with that, this concludes the 8th episode of the Vanilla Experience podcast. Thank you for watching, everyone, and as always, we'll be back for the next one then.